This episode is sponsored by JDAQA Software Testing, your scalable solution for manual, automated, security, and performance testing. Check us out at jdaqa.com. And with that, let's get on with the show.
This is The First Customer, hosted by Jay Agner.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the First Customer Podcast. My name is Jay Agner. Today, I am lucky enough to be joined by Aubrey Amatelli. Did I get it right?
Yes.
Perfect.
Good job.
Founder and CEO of PayRio, the first payment provider exclusively focused on alternative medicine. Such a tight tagline. I love it very much. Aubrey, hello. How are you?
Great. How are you?
I'm good.
Good.
So tell me what that means in layman's terms. What is the first payment provider exclusively focused on alternative? Like, what do you guys do, non-markety speak?
Yeah. We do payment processing for cannabis, psilocybin, CBD, all of the alternative medicines. I like to call them that. They are medicines in my mind, but our primary customer are dispensaries across the country. So they use our payment systems, but we have a really big growing e-commerce division as well that does the CBD and THCA and all of the alternative cannabinoids.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, where did you grow up? And did that have any impact on you being an entrepreneur?
I think it did. I grew up in the Silicon Valley, so San Jose, California, the home of, Google and Facebook. And so I grew up there. I've always had the startups in my blood, but also being part of California, cannabis is huge in California. It's, I think, where some of the best cannabis is grown in the world, in the Emerald Triangle up north. And so I, have been involved in cannabis since 2012 in California, which is a long time. But I had a traditional career at JP Morgan, which essentially was the company that purchased a startup I was working at in the Silicon Valley. So I'm getting back into the startup world by launching PayRio, and then kind of marrying my love for cannabis and alternative medicines together.
Did your buttoned up JP Morgan friends go, what are you doing? What are you, was it a leap from, traditional finance stuff to kind of a little more of a, I hate the word taboo, but I'm going to say it, but just, like whatever, like a different, something that's not entirely mainstream. How did that transition kind of in your professional life go?
That's a great question because it took me months to come out with PayRio. You're talking about first customer. It was like I had the website, the business, I was working, and even had a few customers before I was ready to launch on LinkedIn, because I was so, JP Morgan they follow the federal guidelines, right? And so cannabis is federally illegal. That's how they feel, even though they actually are a big supporter of cannabis in Canada, which is very interesting. But we could never really talk about cannabis. I didn't discuss consuming cannabis with my JP Morgan crew for over a decade. And then the moment I came out on LinkedIn, I had like a flurry of messages from my colleagues like, oh my gosh, I, eat gummies, or I make cookies, or, oh, this is so cool. So it was very eye-opening for me that we kind of kept in our JP Morgan bubble. But the moment I came out, I was so scared that I would be ostracized or judged, but it was actually the opposite. I was welcomed by.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
You love when you take the risk and it wasn't as bad as you thought. It's always a good feeling. So where did the love come from? I mean, there's probably obvious answers, but just in generally speaking, like how did you get passionate about this industry?
Well, so I've been around cannabis, my whole high school life. I actually wasn't a big consumer though back in high school or college, because I was a big time soccer player. I played soccer in college, so I was very straight edge and just wanted to play D1 and, very competitive, win all my games, etc. So it wasn't until after college, after my MBA, where I met my kiddo's father, believe it or not. And he was just a home grow, like a California grower before it was legal, actually. So very interesting, out of Santa Cruz. And I just, I learned to just love what the plant does. And I saw the industry go from kind of being illegal in California to being medical to being recreational, and just how the home growers, like the organic home growers, how they would be able to make a lot of money to a little money. So I've seen the industry change since 2012. And when I was launching the payment company, I wanted to focus in on high risk industries like CBD and cannabis that don't have many payment options, and figure out a way to help them and be part of the growth of the industry.
Well, I mean, it is an interesting question. Like, why? Like, what? It's been probably a dumb question for somebody who's in finance, but like, why are they risky if it's legal? And there's like, dispensaries and everything. Like, you're driving down the street and you see them, and there's billboards and everything. Why would it be risky from a payment processing perspective for companies to be involved in that?
So it's because of the federal regulation. So it's federally illegal. So each state is able to put it on the ballot and make it legal for medical or recreational or both. But because the federal government deems it as, a Schedule 1 substance, or federally illegal, then basically our governing body, payment companies governing body, are Visa and MasterCard. So those are who we look to for the rules and regs. And Visa and MasterCard look to the federal government.
Mm,
So until it's federally legal, Visa and MasterCard don't want anything to do with cannabis from a traditional credit and debit card processing solution. We have to use very unique ways, like the ATM rails that don't run on Visa and MasterCard, or different
mm.
wallet technologies. So all of our payment solutions are out of the box, very interesting solutions, are creative ways to achieve giving consumers the opportunity to use a card rather than cash at a dispensary.
What would be some sort of law that would greatly impact you negatively, business wise, kind of some blanket thing that maybe maybe doesn't keep you up at night, but that you're, concerned about? And the other side, like, what's something that would open things up for you guys specifically? Maybe not Visa and MasterCard, because like that would maybe be just main direct competition that you don't want to deal with. But like, what are both sides? Like, what's something that you're kind of afraid of in the industry, but something that would help you guys law? And it all is like based on legality, I guess, at this point, or based on your question, the answers to the question. What would be your answer to both of those?
That does keep me up at night, right? Because when I started PayRio, 100% of my business was focusing on dispensaries and helping dispensaries accept credit and debit cards. When cannabis is federally legal, that entire part of my business will go away, because their point of sale systems are going to have the payment as part of the checkout process. So when you go to a dispensary, the bud tender rings up the goods, just like at a grocery store, right? And then when they finish up ringing up the goods, the amount populates on the terminal at the grocery store. And then the customer just taps their card and goes. That is not an option right now at dispensaries. So that's called like an integrated payment solution. When it's federally legal, all of the point of sale systems are just going to integrate payments, and they're not going to need me with this separate terminal that the
Hmm.
staff has to plug the amount into. So,
Hmm.
so as a year goes by and our revenue is all tied up in dispensaries, which is amazing, hyper growth, I realized that I need to prepare for the future of that happening, which we don't know when it's going to happen. I would say 2 to 3 years away, maybe more, maybe less. You never know. It's always
It's
like, oh, it's
definitely not. It's
months.
definitely not in these next 3 years. I don't
Yeah,
think.
probably not, right?
I
And
don't think so.
so I've actually have parts of my business now, and that's really where we expanded to CBD and legal substances that are alternative medicines. Like, they're not cannabis, but CBD also comes from the hemp plant. And so we have a large growing e-commerce business. So businesses that sell CBD, or even psilocybin spores or cannabis seeds, or even little clones that you can buy and grow in your backyard. Those businesses are, believe it or not, federally legal. And so we can process payments in those businesses and not ever worry about losing that part
Mm,
of our business. So it's been a big goal of ours over the last year and a half, 2 years, to bifurcate our business. And now we're about 50-50 of each, still growing
mm.
rapidly on both sides, but we have this safety net that helps me sleep at night, because without that, it was a little difficult. I know, and I always talk to dispensaries. I know that eventually they might not need us, but for now they do, and they really need us. So, yeah.
Just an industry question. What is the THCAs and all the delta? Like, what the hell is all that stuff? Does it work? Like, do you get high off? I just don't know. I see it, you see it at the shops and the CBD, and it's the places that aren't legal have that stuff. What the hell is that stuff?
So it's a loophole. You're gonna laugh.
Okay.
THC is above point. So cannabis plant is above 0.3% THC.
Hmm.
So the cannabis plant gets you high. You get a buzz. THCA essentially is a hemp plant where they take the crystals off of a cannabis plant and they sprinkle them on a hemp plant. So in itself, it's below 0.3% THC, which is federally legal. But the moment fire touches those crystals, it turns into cannabis. And so it's a loophole industry where the
Great.
dispensaries are facing tons of regulations and taxes. But if you just take the cannabis plant, do you do some science? I don't know exactly what, but essentially extract the crystals and put it on a hemp plant and light that on fire, then it becomes THC. So you can sell that online and you could ship it to almost every state right now. So that's what, THCA is. The deltas are more, created, they're more synthetic, but the THC is an actual plant that's just, I might be getting, so anyone listening in the industry, like email me if I'm getting that wrong, but essentially
Oh,
that's a very
I'm gonna take it as fact.
free.
So I'm gonna tell everyone that's
Yeah,
always wondered what the hell that was. So, all right. So I mean, I have like so many different questions from different areas because it's just such an interesting combination of like a very buttoned up, stiff like problem, and then like in an industry that's very, I mean, if you want to go the other way, like shirts off, right? I mean, it's just like a different kind of vibe than finance. But let's talk about your first customer. Like, so you talked a little bit about you jumped out of JP Morgan and you started to, kind of figure out what it was you wanted to do, with building this thing on the side. How did you do that? And how did you do that? You kind of mentioned you were in the closet, when it comes to letting
yeah,
anybody know what was going on. Walk me through like being a 9 to 5er and then going like, I have this idea for this thing that can kind of take some of the pieces from my previous life, which is, oh, by the way, what I like preach all day every day is like take the pieces from what you have done experience wise and apply those to something in your own business where you can kind of be the specialist, which is just a very cool thing that you did. Talk to me a little bit of detail on that, and then like how did you get your first customer as a, when the first iteration of the business?
totally. And it was interesting. So I was transitioning out of, actually, after JP Morgan, I went to a startup for a year. And I was the chief revenue officer of a publicly traded fintech. And that was an incredible experience for me, learning that my skills at JP Morgan translated over the startup world so fabulously, right? I was able to bring all these ideas that I'd been living and breathing for over a decade into a startup and really make a difference. And that's where I got the itch. Like I was ready to start my own company. At
Right.
that interim company as a CRO, I was the only female in the entire C suite and board. And so part of me was really, I could do it and I wanted to show other women that they could do it as well. So that's why I started PayRio. But as I was transitioning out, I actually hired a cold caller from the Philippines and she just messaged me on LinkedIn and I had the website and the concept, I had the relationships in place, and now I needed to get the customers. So I purchased a super long customer list and had her cold calling every single day, all day, and then setting appointments for me. And that's when so then I would take the appointment, give them a call. And initially, it was actually in the CBD world. So it
Mm,
was calling CBD companies. And an overwhelming response was, we have payment processing for CBD, Square does it, we need payment processing for our cannabis dispensary.
mhm,
So fast forward, I found a cannabis payment processing partner and was able to take one of the, cold calls. At that time, I actually had the cold caller and I had a couple 1099 employees that were working for free, commission only. They were super passionate about cannabis as well. And we were able to get a small dispensary in Oklahoma, and they had two locations, and we got on with the customer. They're still a customer of ours today,
love
which is
that.
really amazing. And just with cold calling efforts, hundreds of calls. And it was the three of us. We would meet in the morning at 9 a.m. We get a game plan. We'd cold call all day, and then we'd meet at 4 and talk about our success. And we did that for 3 months straight. Took us a couple months to get a customer, but once that first customer came, then it was, great
Were
from
you
there.
doing the cold calling too?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like it
We're
makes
building a business from not, no one knew.
and now, I mean, God
Yeah.
bless you, man. I mean, geez, I sweat thinking about it. I think I had like a whole, like I read Fanatical Prospecting by Jeb Blount, who's like one of my favorite books, and it's like, just pounds it into you that cold calling still works and it's still the way to go. And I did it for like a day. And when I say a day, I maybe called 5 people, and I hated I couldn't, I think I stay up at night now thinking about those 5 calls that I didn't even get anybody. It was like voicemail, and I still hated it so much. So good for you. And you bought a list, which is like a very smart thing I think to do that gets frowned upon a lot, especially because of just the data consumption and data, like, gated warehouses we live in, where it's like they want you to buy, contact information from Zoom Info for $80,000 a year, not a list of like the exact companies you need. And people kind of shit on that, to be honest. They're like, that's not the way to go, and it doesn't work. And blah, blah. So I am very glad to hear that, like, it's a good thing to have a very targeted list of like potential clients, and like you could slice that phrase however you want, but if it's a good list of like real places that you want to make do business with, buying a list sometimes is like the way to go. I mean, your alternative would have been to like make the list yourself, which would have just extended the process out another couple months. So,
And we're actually pretty scrappy. Some of the states list all of the owners of the dispensaries, their email and their phone number. So the Oklahoma one was actually because we found in the state website a list of all the dispensary owners. And in Oklahoma, there's thousands. They just gave away like dispensary licenses like
hmm,
candy. So
yeah,
we got to start with a couple thousand person list as well in Oklahoma, along with the CBD one we bought. But we were
that's
scrappy.
great.
I mean, I'm the self-funded. PayRio is 100% self-funded, and we didn't have any money. It was all my personal money going out the door at the beginning, but that's the way it had to be, and it worked out.
Love it. So, how do you think of personal brand versus pay Rio brand? Like, how much are you out there, being Aubrey versus like, and your thought leadership stuff on finance and alternative, payments for alternative medicine? How much of that is driven through the Rio brand, the pay Rio brand, or yourself? Like, you put a bunch of time and thought into like you want to be, your own kind of thing, or is it all channeled through the brand right now?
So it's actually when I started the company, that's exactly, I thought about that from the beginning. Payment companies are old and no one wants to talk to them. And, it's hard when you see a payment company, you never feel like you can talk to the owner, or, they just seem archaic back in the day.
Yeah.
And so when I launched PayRio, I wanted to be the face of the company and essentially be open and talk to all of my customers or people interested. And so PayRio is an extension of me. Like if you look at the website, it's fun, it's bright, it's hopefully you feel like it's approachable. Our company Instagram, I run it to this day personally. It's like part of, you get a little bit of my life, a lot of bit of business. And so from a brand perspective, I wanted customers to feel comfortable talking to us and know that they could reach out to any of us at any time, which is completely different than most of the payment companies out there. So yeah, that's actually one of the foundational pieces of our business. It's you're getting to know an extension of me, and all of my employees are as well. They're all people through my network. I have my best friends from high school working. My best friend from college is running the sales team. My very first employee, he was my neighbor growing up. I used to babysit him. So like my entire company is an extension of me as well, and my network, and just it's like a big, happy family.
Wow. Who is your customer now versus when you started? Is it the same exact? I mean, I know we heard a little bit of the pivot from CBD, but just the people that you're going after and the people you're talking to at those places, is it the same person, or what have you kind of changed or learned over time from when you got that first customer to how you're getting your customers today?
So our first customer was a mom and pop, a couple transactions a day. And now we're talking to large multi-state operators that
Mm,
have 60 plus locations that are publicly traded. So we've grown a lot since 2022. And a lot of that is brand recognition. So our brand is now recognized in the industry. We're involved in all of the biggest industry events, sponsoring or attending. And then a big piece of our business right now, growth is organic through customer referrals. We do such a great job with our customers. We have fair pricing and we have 24/7 service. So our team always picks up the phone, and a lot of like the a very large company just reached out to us saying that they were referred by a couple other dispensaries, and that just like that's warms my heart. That's what makes me the happiest, is that the word out there is that we do a great job and to work with us. So now it goes from mom and pop, we don't, who is PayRio, we've never heard of you, to hey, we're a 60 location dispensary, we want to work with you.
I love that. And what's the difference in the pitch for you guys between a multi-state 60 versus a mom and pop shop? Like, what is the value you bring? Is it the same value you bring to both, or is there some, some differences?
So we treat every customer equally, and that's also hard to find. Like we aren't, from a pricing standpoint, we're fair across the board. There's longer negotiations in terms of discount potential pricing on hardware, for example. I don't A lot of the small customers, smaller mom and pop shops, they aren't helped in the same way as the large ones with by other companies, or their back is being turned to them and they really don't have many solutions out there. So we treat every customer equally and we'll fight for the small mom and pops. That's because I was one of them. In 2022, no one knew who I was. It was hard to get the help. And so we see all the customers equally.
But when you're selling to them, are there different pain points for a dispensary owner that has 60 locations versus a mom and pop shop, or are they kind of the same problem?
The 60 locations pain points are, how do we launch this to all 60
Right,
locations
right,
and
right.
train all of our staff? And so yes, in that situation, our onboarding process is much more robust. We have individual meetings with each location or large training meetings with the entire organization.
Mhm.
So, this mom and pops, we can send them a terminal, they connect it to Wi-Fi, we walk them through the first transaction and they're done. The large operators, it's a longer onboarding process and a bit of a hand holding, because there is a reconciliation piece and a finance piece behind the scenes that's really important to get right for larger operators, especially.
Beautiful. I have one more question, non-business related, just, Aubrey being Aubrey. If you could do anything on earth and you knew you wouldn't fail, what would it be?
I would have a farm in Calistoga, California, and it would have only petite animals, like small animals, like mini pigs, mini cows, mini goats. I already bought the URL,
Is
petite
there a
farm.
thing? Does this exist already? This seems like the greatest idea ever. This is just
Am
like a
I,
mini.
am I sharing my idea to everyone?
Luckily for you, nobody watches this show. But if I mean, that's incredible. That's a great a mini farm. Like that has is that not a thing already? I'm gonna have to look.
I've looked it up. I haven't seen, like, there's one town in the
Oh.
US that has everything mini, so I assume they have a mini farm. But
Wait, there's a U.S. town that everything's mini.
yeah, I
You
think
must
so.
be into many things if you know that is a thing. I
Well, I
don't even
Googled,
know.
I wanted to see if someone else had a mini farm, and no
Oh,
one did, but
and
there
you
was this.
came across a mini town.
Yeah.
Where's the mini town?
I don't know, I forget.
I'm gonna
Uh,
have to look at it. This
I
is
will
too
have to look it
incredible.
up.
I love
Yeah,
this. That's
but
the by far, that's the best answer I've ever heard, and I've had 200 plus answers, and that is by far, hands down, the best answer. A mini, like, petite farm. Alright, so, I guess
so I
the
woke up in the middle of the night, like, a month ago, and I, like, woke up, and I was like, "I could call a petite farm. Let me look on GoDaddy to see if petitefarm.com is available," and it is. So I bought it, like, at, like, 3 a.m. So petitefarm.com is owned by
oh,
yours truly, and
coming
one.
coming to a farm near you. What a great answer. We went to my there's these this is gonna be a little bit of a tangent, but they have a duck farm, or they have a farm near us where you can, like, take eggs when they're, like, almost ready, and you put them in the incubator, and the kids get to, like, watch them hatch and get to play with them, like, and then you take them back to the farm. But
Oh, I
we
love
went back to that farm to drop them off, and it was like a just like a crisp, like whatever fall day. And I'm like, I need a farm. Like I grew up on a farm in Virginia, and I'm like, I kind of moved up here to the suburbs. I'm like, I go to this farm. Like, so anyway,
yeah.
maybe we'll have neighboring farms. You know, you'll
Yes.
have your mini farm, I'll have a regular farm, and we'll be farmer friends. This was great. I really did enjoy this. Where can people find more about you if they want to reach out directly, and where can they find more about PayRio if they want to work with you guys?
Yeah, so both payrio.com or .co. If you go to meet the team, you can actually book a meeting directly with me right there on my calendar link is there. Our Instagram is payrio_HQ. So that's another way to connect with me and just get to know myself, the company, and the team. But those two ways we're constantly on them. LinkedIn's huge for cannabis, believe it or not. LinkedIn's the only social media platform where you can hashtag cannabis right now. So there's a huge cannabis community on LinkedIn because all other platforms ban the hashtag. There's also a very big platform that you can reach me at.
Beautiful. Well, I hope people check you out. You were just a treat. I have 3 daughters, and I hope that they are as cool and entrepreneurial as you one day. So keep up the awesome work, and best of luck, and let's stay in touch, all right? Thanks, Aubrey. Have a good day.
Okay, bye.
See ya.